Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. My name's Anthony Miller. I'm a Cyber Partner Development Manager with Cisco. With me here today I've got Michael Van Zoggel. And
good afternoon, Anthony, how are you?
Good afternoon, Michael, and also Darren Lynn. Do you want to do some introductions, gents?
Mike Van Zoggel. I look after, I'm a National Sales Manager for Outcomex and look after the team and the number nationally.
Darren Lynn, I'm the Security Practice Manager.
Great, well thanks for joining us today and giving up some time. What a big session this whole Cisco Live is. First things first, congratulations on your Architecture Award.
Thank you.
Great job, and
you.
I think rewarding great behaviour, and thanks for the business with Cisco.
It's the second time we've won that, Anthony.
Congratulations.
Hopefully it's habitual, but great work from Darren and the team, and we're really proud of that.
Yeah, look, and I think that leads on to that Outcomex is a really great Cisco partner. So first part of the session today, I'm really keen to understand a little bit more about your organisation. What makes you tick? I suppose first things first, why the name Outcomex?
So look, I'll admit there was some pretty strenuous debate in the office around this one. We rebranded from a legacy name and a brand that we developed over the last sort of 6 or 7 years prior. The reality was that when we sat down and we spoke about what we do, the pace in which we act, the agility in which we act, the word outcome just kept on coming up, time and time again. And because we really couldn't peg what the outcome could be, because it was fairly nebulous in nature, the X really symbolises that other component that we don't know yet, but we can bring to the table.
Perfect.
So Outcomex, so it sounds a little bit strange, but the reality is it's rooted in our DNA, and that's what we believe in.
That's good. And tell me a little bit more about the company, numbers of staff. I believe you're very solid in terms of engineering, resources, etc.
Yeah.
Where you're operating today.
Doing that one. So Outcomex is an engineering service delivery first organisation. So that is something that we really believe differentiates us in the market. Today there's approximately 75 staff, 80?
75.
75. It changes a lot. We're bringing people on, even 2 this week. Of those 75 staff, there's 52, 53 engineers, so very heavily engineering centric, and those engineers are all highly certified. 20 or so are CCIEs, and there's a number of those have dual or triple CCIEs. So we really believe in having that engineering excellence, and that's a huge differentiator for us in the market, and we believe from an outcomes perspective, we're able to deliver those outcomes to our customers much faster, much easier than most of our competitors.
And a crazy fact there, Anthony, in my sales team, I actually have a number of CCIEs that are now salespeople. So,
Brilliant.
we really do focus on having people that understand the technology, understand the reasons why, and can really solve problems on the fly because they've had experience there.
Perfect. So how many engineers now? How many CCIEs?
I think there's 20
people,
last
yes.
count, yep, as of yesterday or the day before.
Good. And then growth terms, or growth plans. So you're in Sydney, you moved into Melbourne.
Yep. So we've just bought an office down in Adelaide, so getting that full eastern seaboard coverage and then down is pretty important to us. So Adelaide is a focus for this first half of this year, and then we're moving into Canberra and the ACT as well.
Brilliant, no, that's true to see. Tell me, in terms of, as you've developed as an organisation, what sort of gap in the market are you finding with organisations? Do you talk to a certain vertical style of customer? Is there an ideal customer you'd like to work with?
Look, we have a really fantastic list of customers, and they're not of any certain size or vertical. The reality is that our customers are generally more forward-thinking than other customers, if that makes any sense. So they come to us when they've got complex deployments that might be on the leading edge. They might have seen PowerPoint somewhere and rationalise that through the business, and they come to an engineering organisation like ours to go and deliver that solution. So generally our customers are forward-thinking. Generally they're using us to fill specialised gaps a lot of the time. So the reality of it is that we deal in the more complicated sets of solutions that are out there, and it's not viable a lot of the time for customers to own those skill sets themselves. So engineering solutions based on complex integrations and very, very new to market solutions as well. That's where we sort of really specialise.
Hence, obviously, the leading with the whole engineering piece as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's really important to us.
No, terrific. Tell me, with your relationship with Cisco, you've got a choice of vendors to work with, particularly at a security level. That's obviously where I come in from the global security sales organisation. But why Cisco, and what's been the journey with Cisco? How did you get to here now?
For me, I've always been involved in Cisco and Cisco security way back in the day from when Cisco acquired Ironport. They had a very pillared organisation, so there's lots of different technologies doing lots of different things, but nothing communicated together. When Cisco acquired SourceFire in 2013, I think that was a real catalyst for the change of strategy that Cisco has around starting to provide an integrated architecture, especially around the integration of Cisco AMP. That's advanced malware protection, just so you don't have to ask me what it is.
Yes. No acronyms, free zone here today.
So I think that was the real forward thinking, and that struck a chord with me as personally, and I took that core into Outcomex when I was hired in 2015. And that was what we drove the solutions around. It was always take a technology, find something that we can pair with it so we can integrate those two technologies together.
And I think just to understand the organisational references to that, so when Darren came on board, we were seeking Darren specifically to drive the security practice because of his background with Cisco. I think we, as an organisation, realised that we had to have some specialisations. So Darren formed the first practice within the business, being the security practice, and that really came off the bat of performing a lot of enterprise networks configurations around a product called Identity Services Engine. We got really good at that. It's a very difficult product to implement well. We got very well known for that, and I guess from Darren's perspective, it allowed him then to peg integrations with Identity Services Engine and then across the portfolio within the architecture. And for us, the architectural component is very, very important to make sure that we achieve the maximum frontage.
That's good. And we'll come back and talk about some of those solutions and everything first at a later stage. But Mike, I suppose the first question though to you is, why Cisco? What is Cisco bringing to the table? What's the benefit of having Cisco with you?
Yep. So lots of benefits, and obviously, we as a specialist Cisco partner, we invest in Cisco, and Cisco invests in us. So at an organisational level, it makes it very easy to partner and to drive a strategy forward. Our business is highly leveraged to the Cisco brand and to developing solutions that Cisco take to market, again, at a point form. So the reality is that from a security perspective, Cisco has the most complete portfolio in the industry. And regardless of where you see small components of that portfolio, maybe leapfrog others and whatever else, it is the only vendor that we can deal with that has that complete breadth. That gives us a lot of cross-architecture opportunity, right? Yeah. So because we feel very, very strongly in having those solutions baked into every part of the infrastructure that a customer might have, because that's what it needs to be, and that's how we need to deploy. We need a vendor that is one throat to choke, has defined and relevant architectures within those product groups, and that we can really pitch a full frontage solution for.
Fantastic. What percentage of your business today is Cisco?
I'd like to say it's somewhere around the 85% mark. Yeah.
Right.
So, but everything we do, within the organisation is a Cisco validated architecture. So our other vendors that we do work with are a part of the ecosystem. That we have reference material that we can go against to make sure that when we pitch a solution to the market, it's going to work, and there is absolute support for it from all those vendors involved.
Brilliant. And I know certainly we've done some joint investments together around how do we help you build out a practice. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that's assisted you?
Sorry, say that again.
Just in terms of big bets and investments from Cisco, how has that helped you build out the practice?
It definitely gave us a focus.
Yep.
Having to hit some sort of revenue number definitely is a focus.
Yes.
There's also a reputational piece that comes with it, right? You don't go into these big bets or these other engagements with Cisco just to sit there and work through the process and hope you come out on the other side. Look, there's financial benefits to us, there's reputational benefits for us, there's employment benefits for us. As we grow the practice and as we build the capability, it allows us to bring more staff on. Allows Mike to expand the sales number, bigger and bigger, and really we've used Cisco from that big bet as a growth engine. And we've just taken that same mantra, having completed inside 7 months, to drive into other markets as well, such as Victoria and now into Adelaide. Security is a driving force for that.
Yes, well done. So without that investment, Mike, would that have been a difficult thing to achieve, do you think,
I think we as an organisation have to, or had to, make that leap of faith to establish a practice and get better at what we're doing from a security perspective. I think that, yes, clearly it made it easier to do that. The funding from Cisco obviously helps, but it is co-investment, So there's a whole lot of stuff that we had to do internally to bring about change and to bring about that focus as well. I think the key and Darren struck on it before, having a number to achieve, I'm a metrics guy, it is what it is. And the reality of that is that if you've got a target to chase, it makes it a lot easier. So,
Yes.
We wanted to knock that thing off as fast as we could in terms of the target, and we did pretty well. And just to allow that focus and to allow us to sort of push past that is a really, really good thing.
It's a good one, thank you. I suppose the last question before we move off Outcomex as an organisation, can you talk to me a little about your culture, the style of people that you bring on? What's a successful employee?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
There's lots of different personalities in this place, but as a team, it's a very exciting place to be. So, I think we're attractive from an engineering perspective because our engineers have peers that are highly certified, best in market, and available to them to learn off and to work with. I think that the kinds of projects that we get involved with also attracts a really, really high quality and a certain kind of engineer to our organisation.
Yeah.
As I said to you before, from a sales perspective and from a commercial function perspective, my team is mostly engineering based. Yeah, so we were engineers or whatever else, so we kind of get that and we understand how that works. The culture is the hardest thing for us to maintain, Anthony. That's the thing that we're really searching for. I think it's when you've got 30 people, it's not so bad. It's pretty easy to get everyone in a room and play dominoes and have some fun. But at 75, it's getting harder, and obviously interstate makes that harder again. So, we're really focusing on culture. That's why we have 75 people down here. Every one of our employees is down. It's go live this year, and it's a massive investment for us. But it's one of the functions within the business that we do to make sure that we have that team culture available to us.
Fantastic. And certainly if you're here today, please make sure you make your way to the Outcomex stand. What's the idea of the motorbike on the stand?
It's to do, we did this 2 years ago. So we had the motorbike there, we launched Outcomex as a brand away from the previous name. And a lot of the internal mantras that we have around speed and agility, there's a lot of drive, turn things around in 24 hours. Don't let the customer down, be fast, be agile, be quick.
Yes.
The motorbike kind of personified that. So when we created the tagline, speed, performance, proven agility, agility, proven performance, sorry. I should get that right. Having the motorbike really personified that. And it just so happened that one of our staff owned one.
So yeah, the other piece of that is that it's not a piece of jewelry, right? So that thing gets, we've got, it was raced last weekend and whatever else, and I think we that thing gets driven hard and put away wet, and that's kind of how we are as well in a lot of ways, right? So, we're not afraid to get stuff done. We're not afraid to expend energy and effort and whatever else to make a great result. And that kind of starts to think, in terms of the racing side of things as well.
Brilliant. No, that's great. Sounds like a great organisation. And I know certainly times I've been to your Sydney office, it's a lot of fun, lots of great stuff going on. I suppose the next piece now is moving on into really interested in getting your take on, as organisations are digitalising and trying to move to software as a service and all this sort of thing, is, what sort of trends are you seeing? What are some of the questions and business issues your customers are now coming to you to ask? How do I securely do this? Any ideas there? Thoughts?
It's a big question, right? And I think it's it's one that needs to wash through the brain a little bit. Look, I think where we're at right now and what we're seeing in the market is the market's finally clicked onto the fact that security is not a point product or a point in time thing or something that can be solved with a project. Security needs to be more holistic than that. It needs to be thought about and executed at a higher level. And it needs to be baked into everything that goes on. So when we're touching something to digitize it or transform it or make it more agile or make it more serviceable or ingest a new service, whatever the case may be, there is always that conversation now around, okay, is it safe? Are we going to lose anything? Is it protected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now when we think about that en masse, that becomes a pretty scary topic, right?
Yeah.
So we tend to lead with this stuff now, and I think that's changed our behavior in the way that we work with our customers. No longer is a security operations team or a part of the customer business sort of responsible for a single piece anymore.
Yeah.
They're infused across the board, at the application level, through the user and device experience, back into the core architecture and infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of that, and we're seeing that change of behavior, and we're seeing the way that we respond to that, and we actually push forward with those conversations change as well. We're having a chat about this the other day, and mixed metaphors and all the rest of it. But I think, we're starting to look at this stuff like security being the salt in the stew, if that makes any sense.
Oh, we're starting to sound like MasterChef now.
Yeah,
are we?
no, it's a bit of that. But the reality is that every stew that goes out the door, or a soup or whatever else, has got some salt in it, right?
Yes.
And that's the way we need to think about security now, because it's no longer something that you either choose to deploy or not. You have to bake it in. Otherwise, the result's not going to be what it needs to be.
Because I think it's a good point, Darren, because if I think about security in the past, Mike, sorry, it's been a long day, but it's like I was going to feel this one to Darren, is that, in the past, organisations said, I've got a firewall, I've got antivirus, I'm secure. And so clearly that's changed today. But I think what's happening is you're seeing a lot of organisations that have thrown a lot of toys and silver bullets trying to fix the problem of ransomware, getting owned, etc. But people are still getting owned.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to kind of watch if you look at it morbidly, right? There's some really smart people out there. But when we have the conversation with our customers and they have all these different technologies, it's surprising how many times visibility comes up. They still do not know what's happening in their network because they haven't invested in the tools that give them that insight so they can then make the intelligent decisions, even if it is a point solution, around the right technology to put it in. And there has, historically been some very short-sighted approaches and to putting security in. They think antivirus is enough, or they think a firewall is enough. But if you look at how business is done today, I guarantee you there are very few organisations out there today who maintain or mandate that every customer, every person in their organisation lives within the four walls.
Yes.
So that whole concept of visibility and the perimeter now moving out to where the user is, it's a different approach, it's a different mantra or security concept that they have to get their heads around. So everything comes back to visibility, understand the applications and services they use, where people do their work, and then we layer an architecture across based on the tools that provide that visibility into the network.
Oh, good. So you certainly also leverage a great product which is called Identity Services Engine as part of that policy management. Can you talk to me about what Identity Services Engine does? We call it ISE, but can you talk to me a little about what ICE does?
So fundamentally, it's an authorization tool that provides policy-driven access to a network. And by that, I mean, when someone connects to the network, they identify who they are or what they're coming from, and the system is configured to provide access based on a policy that the business has created and we've turned into an IT policy to allow that user or that device access to services within the network. Right. And fundamentally, that's what most people put it into the organization for. It has some other capabilities to integrate third-party technologies to provide more enhanced policy decisions, but it can also be used as a tool to isolate identified malicious devices through some of the other technologies Cisco has around StealthWatch and Firepower. And
this is the really important stuff, right? So, creating the linkage between ICE, between StealthWatch, and an actuator. When a threat is identified, we can close ports, we can shift to remediated VLANs, we can do a whole lot of things. And that's why the architecture is important, because if we have different point products from different vendors, we can't do a lot of that stuff. So that's why the conversation needs to be taken from that sense.
Right. So in terms of what you're seeing at customers, are you seeing this vendor consolidation? Because they've obviously got lots of different products, point solutions that may or may not talk to each other. Are you starting to see customers saying, help me?
Yeah, I think the popularity of having disparate vendors, certainly from a firewall perspective, defense in depth, and that seems to be not as prevalent as it once was. I think that was, that's certainly changing. I think as well the ability for Cisco to come to the market with an enterprise licensing agreement around certain product sets as well helps it become more commercially viable to get access to the right tools and to be able to deploy those under an ELA agreement. I think so. It's certainly getting there.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. Sometimes they consolidate and don't choose Cisco, but we are seeing a consolidation of those technologies.
And it's easier to do it with Cisco because it is the only vendor in the market that has that portfolio base.
Which is great to hear. So we're down to our last half a minute. No pressure, but if you had a crystal ball and you could actually see what's in the future, what do customers need to start thinking about today?
Policy and trust I think are the two for me. You know, we can do things right from the application through to the core via the device, but we need to think about that now.
Yeah. And it just comes back to integrated architectures. Siloed applications, siloed solutions, there's going to be a hole somewhere.
Thanks, Michael and Darren. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Anthony.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.